Welcome to the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York's 2018 Gala Dinner. In Jewish tradition, each meal begins with a blessing. Please welcome JCRC New York's board member and president of the Russian American Dental Association, Dr. Rada Sumreta, who will lead us in the matzi, the blessing over bread. Thank you, Rada. Dinner is served. Please enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cantor Chaim David Burson from the Jewish Center, who will lead us in the Israeli and American national anthems. Please rise.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה נפש יהודי הומיה ולפתי מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please welcome anchor and reporter for CNN, the host and executive producer of the Wonders List, Bill Weir, and tonight's MC, Bill Weir.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. It is such an honor to be with you, such a great pleasure to join you all tonight as we recognize 5 very special individuals, people who redefine giving back. Tom and Ben Blumberg, Stuart Force, Sander Gerber, and my good friend and colleague, Andrew Morse, who actually told me, yes, he brought his own cheering section, and he actually told me this is his bar mitzvah, which seemed a little strange because I think he's in his mid-40s. But what do I know? And he told me his parents were springing for a great DJ and a Star Wars theme, so I feel like there was a bait and switch. I would have just given you the 18 silver dollars, Andrew. But it's a true honor to be here, and we're going to have a great night tonight. But we do have a special guest. I work at CNN, of course, with morning show New Day anchor Chris Cuomo, who is moving to prime time. And I understand his brother is here, ironically. So we're gonna bring up JCRC President Charles Temmel to introduce Governor Cuomo. Charles?
Thank you. We have a good evening. Let's try that again. Good evening. Thank you. I mean, I don't want to embarrass the governor. And so, first of all, we have a very special guest this evening, a true national leader who's demonstrated his lifelong commitment to the people of the state of New York and also to the people of the state of Israel, Governor Andrew Cuomo. When speaking about Andrew Cuomo, there are really 4 words that come to mind: empathy, courage, effective, and leader. Learning from his late father, the late Governor Mario Cuomo, and his mother Matilda, Andrew learned empathy for those less fortunate, for those who were excluded. And we have always been very touched by this story of how Mario Cuomo, in an act of kindness, would always go into his neighbor's home, an observant Orthodox Jew, and would turn the lights on for them for Shabbat. He's got courage. During the war in Gaza, when the missiles were still flying, Andrew Cuomo was there on the front lines. He also was shown the tunnels while they were still warm, those tunnels coming in from Gaza. And as governor, he was the first U.S. governor to sign an executive order directing the state of New York to disavow and not do business with anybody who was doing boycotts and divestments and sanctions against Israel. He's also incredibly effective. When you look around New York is thriving, and you look around, all the things that have been talked about for years have suddenly become a reality. The new Kosciuszko Bridge, the new Mario Cuomo Bridge across, replacing the old Tappan Zee Bridge, and for those of you who ever drive through the Grand Central, you see that a new LaGuardia Airport is coming up every day. So he's a leader. Empathy, courage, effectiveness are all traits of a great leader. So we're fortunate to have one in the name of Andrew Cuomo. So as a representative organization of the Jewish people in the New York metropolitan area, it is my great honor and our great honor to present to you Andrew Cuomo and to present him with the JCRC's Defender of Israel Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our friend, the 56th governor of the state of New York, Andrew M. Cuomo.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening to all of you. It is a good evening, isn't it? First to Charlie Temmel, who just does a great, great job representing JCRC. Let's give him a big round of applause. Michael Miller, who's my hero, who always shows up, always working, always advocating. We have Consul General Dani Dayan, who is in many ways the personality of Israel. Good to be with you. We have the Controller of the State of New York, who's very important because he has to certify that our books are in order. Controller Tom DiNapoli. We have our great new young speaker, Corey Johnson, and we're very hopeful for his new leadership. We have Bill Weir, who told you he's from CNN. Good to be with you, Bill. I have a brother. Every family has one, right? I have a brother who went the other way from the family teaching and the family morality and prophecy, and he became a journalist. He's not a real brother. He was adopted, actually. He, I don't know if you know this, Bill, he was, we found him at the doorstep in a basket. He was 16 years old at the time. Oh, it was a problem. He couldn't speak. He had many issues that he had to get over, and He's been struggling, but CNN has been kind to him. I want you to know, I do interviews on his show in the morning. He says nasty things about me after the interview. I don't get any rebuttal. Chris Cuomo on CNN. He has an anger against me because I'm the older brother. I'm the more accomplished, smarter, more handsome brother. I'm my father's favorite, my mother's favorite. He can't deal with that, so he acts out. Problem is he acts out on television about it. He's never been able to beat me in a game of basketball, and he cheats. But I don't hold any of that against him. I have love in my heart, and I embrace him, and I pity those who work with him. So send him my best and tell him very complimentary about him. Otherwise, he will attack me on the morning show of CNN. But good evening to all of you, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's a special pleasure to be with Mr. Stuart Force, who you're going to be honoring. Mr. Force is here tonight to honor his son, Taylor. Taylor Force was born in Texas, and he attended West Point, and he led troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. He then went back on a school trip while he was working on his MBA to study the country's startup industry, and he was stabbed to death tragically by a Palestinian terrorist. Now, the death of that idealistic young man is a tragedy for everyone who values freedom and democracy. But Mr. Force, while we're sorry for his loss and we remember his son in our prayers, he took the negative and he turned it into a positive, which to me is always the greatest sense of character. And he worked to pass the Taylor Force Act, which prevents U.S. aid from going to survivors of terrorists, which puts the whole world on notice that if you support terrorists, you will pay a price. Big round of applause, and we thank you, Mr. Force. I thank you for this great honor tonight. It comes at a very important time. Yesterday, we marked the 73rd anniversary of the ending of the Second World War in Europe. The evil 12-year reign of the Nazi Empire was crushed. The genocidal regime that took the lives of 6 million Jewish people and 50 million people in total was finally destroyed. This Monday will mark the 70th year since the State of Israel was founded. "11 minutes after Israel was founded, President Truman said this country recognizes the State of Israel. It shouldn't have taken 11 minutes, but we thank him for his prompt action. And it was the beginning of a great relationship. And our countries have enjoyed a special relationship ever since. It's focused on a shared heritage, on shared values, shared security concerns, and shared commercial interests. And I'm proud to say that the relationship has its deepest roots right here in the state of New York. Our stories are intertwined. A young Zionist named Emma Lazarus from Manhattan wrote the immortal words that are on our Statue of Liberty. A student named David Ben-Gurion spent 2 years reading about democratic theory in our public libraries and went on to establish the State of Israel. A Jewish boy from the Lower East Side named Mickey Marcus went to West Point and went on to lead as the first general of the Israeli Defense Forces. The first flag of the State of Israel was sewn by a tailor in Harlem. New York and Israel are political bodies that share the same DNA. And for that reason, we've always shared a special relationship. As a born and bred New Yorker, The Jewish people and the culture are embedded in me. My best friends are Jewish. 2 of my brothers-in-law are Jewish. My father's stories, as Charlie mentioned, as being the Shabbos Goy, my father's favorite philosophy, speaking about Tikkun Olam and the universality of Tikkun Olam and how it really encompasses almost every religion's teaching and the best path forward for community. Unfortunately, as history shows us over and over again, political tides turn and our interconnections are tested. The economic anger in New York and across this nation have been politically manipulated to turn American against American. The war on immigrants has turned into a war against diversity. Differences, racial differences, religious differences, lifestyle differences have become a flashpoint. It's happening even here in the great state of New York, the state of tolerance. Hate crimes are up 17% between 2016 and 2017, primarily against people who are gay and African Americans. The number of neo-Nazi groups nationwide rose 22% over the past year. The number of anti-Semitic incidents in the state of New York essentially doubled from 2016 to 2017 to about 400 anti-Semitic incidents here in New York. And the complexity of the situation continues to grow. Regardless of your position on the Iranian nuclear agreement, the threat from Tehran against Israel continues and grows. It is these moments that call our character into question. It's these moments that dissolve the gray into black and white and ask each of us individually, where do you stand? And who do you stand with? My answer is simple. As long as I am governor of New York, this state stands 100% with Israel, and we are proud and we are strong. I believe true friendship is shown not in the good times, not in the easy times, but in the hard times. In 2000, when President Bill Clinton was trying to negotiate peace between Israel and Palestine and things were tense, I was in President Clinton's cabinet as the HUD secretary, and he sent me to Israel to speak about what we were trying to do. In 2002, when suicide bombers were attacking Israeli buses and everybody left, there was no tourism, there were no visitors, I led a New York delegation as a sign of solidarity to go to Israel. In 2014, as Charlie mentioned, when Hamas was bombing Israel, we wrote a letter of support. The Prime Minister invited us to put together a delegation to visit, and we headed a bipartisan delegation. Michael Miller was kind enough to join us, and it was the trip of a lifetime. As Charlie mentioned, we went and we visited the tunnels that the Hamas had built. Those tunnels are etched in my mind as a symbol of their desperation and hatred for the people of Israel. These tunnels were miles long, very sophisticated, and for a country that has so little infrastructure, so few resources, they put such tremendous effort and money into building these tunnels. It was just indicative of how their number one priority is to inflict violence on the people of Israel. That was the last time I saw Mr. Perez. President Perez was a friend of my father. My father sent me to see the president when I was in my 20s. My father said he is one of the most insightful leaders on the globe. And I went and I met President Perez, and I was talking to him about terrorism and how Israel deals with the constant terrorist attacks. This is when I was in my 20s, 4 years ago. And the president said, I'll never forget, they come for us now because we are close, because they can get to us. But one day they will figure out how to cross the ocean, and then they will come for you. Because the enemy is not Israel. The enemy is freedom and democracy. And the way they demonize Israel, they demonize America. And when they figure out how to cross the ocean, you will see. This was 20 years before 9/11. This was before the internet became a transmission line of hate across the ocean. And now we see how right he was and how profound he was. Israel's enemies are America's enemies. They are the same. And we have to realize that in this nation. The mutuality, the commonality, the fight for Israel is the fight for America. And we have to realize that today. I also believe partnership is shown by actions. I'm proud to have been the first governor to stand up and support BDS. I'm proud to have advocated it all across the nation, and I'm proud that today 23 governors have joined on to the BDS movement. I'm proud that we've strengthened ties between Israel and New York. We're building a beautiful joint venture between Technion and Cornell. It is going to be a world-class technology academic center, and it's right here in New York. I'm proud that we established the first New York-Israel Commission. It spurs economic development. It deepens cultural ties. We've created a tourism agreement where I Love New York campaign is combined with the Israel Ministry of Tourism to combine for mutual tours that go back and forth. 2 years ago, New York signed an R&D agreement with Israel to develop clean energy together, and we are now importing technology from the Iron Dome to keep our power grids safe. I'm proud to say that our administration has done more work with Israel than any administration in the history of the state of New York, and I'm proud of it. But it's not enough to say what we did, because we must now redouble our efforts, because the challenges facing Israel are only getting worse. Israel's border from the south, missiles being pointed at Tel Aviv from the north. Tonight we heard that sirens went off in the Golan Heights, warning of incoming missiles, and that 20 missiles were launched towards Israel. Hopefully, and the early news is that the Iron Dome stopped the missiles, but it just shows the level of danger and the imminence of danger. That's why tonight I plan to contact the leadership of Israel, express our solidarity and support, and tell them as soon as convenient, I plan to lead another delegation back to Israel because times are tough, they're in danger, and New York should be there. The last trip I took, I went past Yad Vashem, which is, as you know, such a powerful, powerful symbol and reminder of how cruel people can be and how ugly humanity can be. And I laid a wreath in honor of the lives we lost, and I was with a rabbi, and I was signing into the book of visitors. And I said to the rabbi, what is the best thing that a governor of New York can say at this moment? And the rabbi said, you should sign it and write Hineni. Hineni is the word used by Moses, Abraham, and Samuel when danger threatened and God called upon them to lead. It means, here I am. Here I am. Today, our democracies are threatened by the same forces of fear and ignorance that have plagued humanity since ancient times. What we saw in the Holocaust, we should never forget, because we always must remember what governments and humanity are capable of. So I ask you tonight to join me in the only response that has ever succeeded. Hineni, we are here. We are here for the state of Israel, and we always will be. Thank you for the award, and God bless you.
Governor, not only are you here, but you've always been here with us, and we trust that you will lead an example, just as you have through all the governors of this United States, in the anti-BDS movement, in standing with Israel, in standing for courage, and in standing for decency. Governor, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program will just continue in a few minutes. Should I say something? We're going to start in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to say that our program will start as soon as the governor leaves. Want to say anything? Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Say, ladies and gentlemen, our program will start as soon as the governor leaves. But they'll give him the Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our program will start again as soon as the governor exits the room. Thank you. Okay, let's get him out of here. Okay.
Okay. Let us get the show back on the road. I'm used to competing with Cuomo's for airtime. In fact, when I worked with Chris at ABC, he was so hyper-competitive about who would get what story and what assignments. And one day, an image came into my mind that sort of clicked for me and helped explain it. I like to imagine that on Christmas morning at the Cuomo household, the father Mario would just throw one present in the middle of the room and say, "Who wants it?" But he is a fine colleague, and as well as some of my other colleagues are here tonight in support of Andrew, we are bonded by similar passions of truth-seeking and storytelling and exploration. And I have been fortunate enough to travel to over 100 countries in my job, including Israel, in good times and bad, and it's one of my favorite places in the world. I did an episode on the Dead Sea and paddled the Jordan River and walked Masada at dawn, and it is a very special place in my life. But I developed a sort of a personal fascination in traveling all over the world to study the secrets of sort of the happiest and healthiest societies around the world. Why people on a little island in Greece or a little corner of a jungle in Costa Rica can live 20 years longer than most of us in the developed world, with a fraction of dementia or Alzheimer's or the diseases that are so common here. And you think there's got to be a magic bullet. There's got to be something in the water. Maybe it's genetics. Yeah, there's some genetics. But science tells us about half of our longevity is based on how we live our lives. And it's not a magic bullet. It's like buckshot. It's a lot of little things. Yeah, it's the terrain, and yeah, it's the Mediterranean diet in some places. But the factor that is similar in all of these amazing spots of longevity is community. You know, we evolved as tribes. So your happiness is directly proportional to the number of people you're comfortable greeting with a hug, the number of people you would trust with your child in an emergency, the number of people who check on you if you miss a couple weeks at the synagogue or down at the club. It's how you're regarded as an elder within that community. And so the more I learn about JCRC, New York, and how you look out for each other, from Brooklyn to Tel Aviv, the way you build relationships with others outside of your community, tackle those hard challenges, boy, the more I am impressed. The fabric of New York is stronger and more beautiful as a result of everybody in this room, and I think all of you should be proud to be associated with such an extraordinary organization, and it's an honor to share tonight with you. And it's an honor to bring up our next guest. He is a very close friend of JCRC-NY since he arrived in August of 2016 as the Consul General of Israel in New York. He represents the state of Israel to communities throughout New York, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Ohio. Born in Buenos Aires, a fluent Spanish speaker, he made it a priority to reach out to Latino and Spanish-speaking communities, a goal shared by JCRC in New York. And they've partnered with this ambassador on many initiatives and look forward to having him join thousands of New Yorkers as he helped lead the Celebrate Israel parade up Fifth Avenue on Sunday, June 3rd. Mark your calendars. So it is my great honor to introduce the ambassador to bring greetings from the state of Israel. Please welcome Ambassador Dani Dayan.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Charlie, Michael, my good friends. I am a great admirer of JCRC. But now I am mostly worried. I'm mostly worried because the governor announced that he will come again to Israel. The last time he did, I was already Consul General. I think I had the most hectic 12 hours of my life. He landed in the morning, he left at midnight, and those were incredible 12 hours. But I must tell you, when you see love, you recognize it. And for the entire 12 hours, I saw the love for the state of Israel in Governor Cuomo's eyes. And I also heard a story from him. He told me in the morning, he told later the same story to Prime Minister Netanyahu when we met him in the evening. The only reason I hesitate to tell you that story is it may offend my good friend Tom DiNapoli, and he may sell the Israel bonds he holds. But Governor Cuomo told me and later the Prime Minister that once he asked his father, tell me, Dad, how is it that we invest, we are Italians, we invest so much in the Italian community, we have so many friends in the Italian community, but nevertheless, with the Jews, you have a higher percentage of votes. They vote in larger numbers for you than the Italians. And Mario Cuomo stared at his son and told him, son, the Jews are more intelligent. Now to a more serious note. We are living momentous days. Someone asked me, have I have good news? I said, I have good news, bad news, and news that I still don't know how it develop. We have very good news that the American embassy will be opened in Jerusalem, in Jerusalem next week. And two other countries already announced they'll follow suit the same month, not in the far future, in the distant future, but in the same month, Guatemala and Paraguay, and we hope that also some European countries will follow the American leadership. And on the other hand, there is an Israeli expression that I think is the expression most cherished by Israelis that they more expect to hear in the radio when there is security tension, and is the words in Hebrew, "En nifgaim lekochoteinu." There is no damage, no casualties to our troops. And today, as Governor Cuomo already mentioned, 20 rockets, Iranian rockets, for the first time, second actually after the drone. There is an attempt of Iran to attack Israeli territory, but thanks to Iron Dome, there are no casualties, there are no damage, neither to our forces nor the property. we hope it will continue that way. My friends, I will conclude by saying that yesterday evening, less than 24 hours ago, I hosted in my home a reception for a person that was here. I think that he had to leave, Speaker Corey Johnson of New York City Council. And the reception was due because he just returned from Israel, leading a delegation organized by the JCRC. And I spoke with Speaker Johnson. I spoke with him yesterday. I spoke with him now. And I listened to his words when he addressed the other invitees in my residence. And I saw what incredible impact that trip had on him. And he was just the leader of a delegation of several city council members. And that's a story that repeats itself. I have the same experience at least on a weekly basis. There are here even many alumni of Michael Miller's trips, Michael Miller Travel Agency. And really, I cannot exaggerate enough the influence that those trips have in the minds, and even so more so in the hearts of the participants. And you know, those trips and the results of those trips are in some sense a compensation for me in comparison with the trips of Governor Cuomo, because they really make my life as a representative of the State of Israel here so much easier, so much easier. So really, I want to congratulate you, Charlie, you, Michael. I see here also past presidents, Janice and others, and so many friends here that are involved in the activity of the JCRC. Thank you. I thank you every day in my heart, and I wish to thank you publicly again today for what you do for the Jewish community of New York, for the State of Israel, for the Jewish people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. UJA Federation is fortunate to have an incomparable leadership team led by its CEO, Eric Goldstein. JCRC New York is privileged to work hand in hand with Eric and his team, and as a proud partner agency, they are truly grateful to be the recipients of UJA Federation's generous support. So please help me welcome a great leader and a good friend, Eric Goldstein.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure on behalf of UJA Federation to be here to salute the extraordinary work of the JCRC, particularly today, given the extraordinary polarization across our community. It's ever more important to have an organization like JCRC, which brings together Jews and non-Jews at a table to address our city's most pressing challenges. We at UJA are extraordinarily proud to be the largest financial supporter of JCRC, but we do so much through them that it's hard to imagine what our city would be like without the JCRC today, from programs that help fight BDS on campus to helping obtain security funding for the government for our local Jewish institutions, to working together on the Celebrate Israel Day Parade, the largest celebration of the State of Israel in the entire world. We are all incredibly grateful for the work of the JCRC. I want to briefly thank and congratulate today's honorees, Andrew Morse, Stuart Force, and Sandra Gerber. Stuart, we are inspired by your commitment to your son's memory. It is extraordinary. And Sandra, who I've known for many, many, many years, your commitment to making the Taylor Force Act a reality is awe-inspiring and a lesson to us all about what an individual can do when motivated to do so. And last but certainly not least, Tom and Ben Blumberg. Tom is one of our longest, most ardent supporters at UJA Federation, but at so many other organizations across our community, including the JCRC, as chair of Hillel International. The list goes on. And it's clear that he's transmitted those values to his son Ben, who's also a leader of UJA Federation in Westchester. We are so grateful for your collective leadership, and it's wonderful to see a father and son being honored here together this evening. And last, thanks to you all for your support of JCRC. It is so critical, and we at UJA Federation look forward to partnering with JCRC for many, many more years to come. Thank you and enjoy the evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the video screens for the JCRC New York video.
To me, it's special because it makes New York a better place for all of us.
Professionalism, caring, and leadership.
JCRC is the connector to take the Jewish community, all other faith-based communities, the broader New York City, New York State community, and bring everyone together.
I think the Jewish community should be very proud to have a group such as the JCRC.
The JCRC is the umbrella organization in New York for the organized Jewish community to protect and defend the presence of the community and its future.
JCRC provides opportunities for Jews of different stripes from different communities, different backgrounds with different philosophies, even theologies, to be able to meet one another and understand one another better, which is always a good thing.
JCRC is a conduit to not only reach into the Jewish community, but also to reach other communities. We are working together, and we have to continue to do that.
JCRC is really the convening organization for leadership in New York City. And I think the more time that people put in with JCRC, the more they get out.
YouthBridge is an extraordinary program which brings high school juniors and seniors together, and they celebrate diversity and they learn to work with one another despite their differences, and being trained in leadership and public speaking as well as in philanthropy.
It has been a pleasure to see thousands of people to be brought out by JCRC and uniting the whole Jewish community under that Celebrate Israel parade.
UJA Federation of New York is incredibly proud to support JCRC's work, including its missions to Israel. These missions take political and elected officials, non-Jewish religious and ethnic leaders are really important in having a real impact in changing the communal discourse around Israel, as people get to sense it, feel it, and experience it.
When I meet leaders in New York, they tell me that the mission to Israel that we're part of with JCRC changed completely their perspective of Israel. They became Israel advocates. You cannot exaggerate the value of those missions.
I think the Faculty Engagement Initiative of the JCRC brought a new insight into the way I think about the country, into the way I see Israel in the Middle East, and to the way I impart that to the graduate students and the professionals that I'm teaching.
The Congressional Breakfast is an annual event. In fact, it's our signature event. And we invite the downstate congressional delegation to come to this event and to address those in attendance.
JCRC helped us really mobilize Russian Jewish vote to be counted, to be noticed. Being able to vote actually is a huge privilege and honor.
We've been able to provide assistance to others on being prepared for any emergency. We serve as the unofficial liaison to the New York Police Department, to the FBI, and other law enforcement agencies.
We could get recommendations from NYPD to make facilities more secure, but seeing what grants were available and give us guidance, the JCRC was invaluable.
What we've realized and learned over the years is the more we know each other and the more we all work together, the better relationship it is for us. That's better for the Jewish community and also better for all the New Yorkers. What we're talking about is how people live together. And I think that's what makes the JCRC unique, and that's what makes the JCRC very special.
Since the founding year of 1976, this organization has been led by some truly amazing individuals, and some of them are with us tonight. So if you're here, please stand. Kenneth Bialkin, Judah Gribbets, Matthew Marilis, thank you, Janice Schornstein, and Ronald Weiner. A big hand for past presidents. And of course, stepping into their shoes in exceptional fashion, an exceptional Jewish leader, current President Charles Tamel. Bring him back.
Bill, thank you. Isn't he a fantastic master of ceremonies? It's just terrific. As you watched the video, I hope you found it interesting. My kids said to me, Dad, make sure you're not wearing the same tie. So I'm not wearing the same tie. In the video, you heard words like conduit, meet, understand, diversity, uniting, common discourse. But the word that came out through all of this, the big idea is together. We come from different traditions, different countries, different religions, but we live together. We work together. We play together in New York. And the better we do that, the better home we make for ourselves. Thanks to you, you've made this evening a success. And on behalf of the JCRC, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I also want to thank our board of directors for their leadership and the very, very talented JCRC staff. And of course, this wouldn't be possible without our parent agency, UJ Federation. I also, on a very personal note, want to thank our honorees, starting with the Blumbergs, Tom and his son, Ben. Tom has been a friend, a mentor, a wise voice in my ear, and responsible also for our new logo and many new initiatives to make this agency better. Frankly, you cannot say Tom Blumberg's name and not have a smile come across your face. They've been part of the Blumberg family legacy, and if it's said that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, if that being true, then the Blumberg family tree stands very tall in the orchard of New York Jewish life. Andrew Morse, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for opening up yourself to the JCRC. And Stuart Forts, thank you for coming, for what you've accomplished in the memory of your late son. We share your loss. But rewarding terrorism is wrong, and your efforts have brought a moral clarity to the issue. And Sandra Gerber, thank you for getting it done. So we'd like to recognize this close friend of the JCRC, Sandra Gerber. Professionally, or I should say his day job, he's Chief Executive Officer and Chief Investment Officer of Hudson Bay Capital. But his personal commitment to Israel and to decency is really inspiring. Most recently, Sandra was awarded the 2017 JINSA Henry Jackson Distinguished Service Award for championing Taylor Force. Sandra credited the JCRC for a small role that we played when Senator Schumer spoke at our congressional breakfast. Sandra took a clip of that breakfast and passed it on to members of Congress who were still on the fence wondering whether they should vote, and they saw Chuck Schumer's passionate voice. The JCRC is proud of our contribution, and we'd like to recognize Sandra's perseverance to get the Taylor Force Act done. To quote Senator Schumer, he sent us a letter today, I joined the JCRC in recognizing Stuart Force and Sandra Gerber, who dedicated copious energy and resources to the cause of justice. The world is a better place for their great advocacy and perseverance. A better place indeed. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Sandra Gerber. Okay.
Okay.
Take a quick picture.
Picture.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, JCRC.
I have the great honor of introducing my friend and, frankly, inspiration, Stuart Force. Now, my wife is in Israel, so kids, I want you to tell mommy that really she's my inspiration, which is true. But Stuart really was incredible in terms of taking a great tragedy, as I think the governor mentioned, and turning it into something positive. And Taylor Force Act passage had a big team. Charles mentioned, and he's absolutely correct, that the JCRC provided, I believe, the first safe space for Democrats to sign on, because this really was a change of narrative. And I had called Michael, and Michael absolutely raised it with Senator Schumer at the JCRC Congressional Breakfast, and it gave the senator an opportunity to speak out very much in favor of the Taylor Force Act. So I do congratulate the JCRC for having a role in the passage of the act. The Taylor Force Act will stop a long-standing practice, which is of the American taxpayer subsidizing Palestinian terror. And I'll quote from the act, which just passed on the omnibus in March. So the Taylor Force Act says, Congress finds the Palestinian Authority's practice of paying salaries to terrorists serving in Israeli prisons, as well as to the families of deceased terrorists, is an incentive to commit acts of terror. And furthermore, the Taylor Force Act calls on all donor countries providing budgetary assistance to the Palestinian Authority to stop direct budgetary support until the PA stops all payments incentivizing terror. Now, this law is a radical departure from the narrative that the Palestinian Authority must condemn terror and come to the negotiating table. In fact, just a few weeks ago, the New York Times had to issue a correction. The New York Times said that the Palestinian Authority paying terrorists is a right-wing conspiracy. Truth is, it's hard to believe, but the New York Times issued a correction a couple days later saying it's not a right-wing conspiracy because the Palestinian Authority actually admits it. Now, 1 week before the AIPAC policy conference, Stuart, Robbie, Kristen, and my daughter Shauna went to Capitol Hill with Taylor's West Point classmates. This was really an astounding trip. We met with 9 senators individually, went to National Security Council as well, including Senator Schumer. And the West Pointers told the senators, they told them, over a 6-month period in Afghanistan, we lost 6 classmates. It was rough, but we understood that it was a time of war. However, they were shocked when they heard that Taylor, who had hung up his uniform, was killed walking down a street in Tel Aviv. And then they heard that Taylor's murderer was celebrated as a hero by the Palestinian Authority state media. Then they learned that the 21-year-old murderer's parents began receiving payments, monthly payments from the Palestinian Authority. Then they learned that these payments from the Palestinian Authority were at least 2.5 times the maximum amount of welfare payments under the Palestinian welfare system. Then they learned that pay for slay is actually guaranteed by Palestinian Authority law. They were shocked. Does this sound like state-sponsored terror killed their buddy? But there was something more unbearable than all this, which forced them to fly in from around the country to demand congressional action, and that's that this institutionalized killing machine was subsidized by the American taxpayer. For 2018, the Palestinian Authority has allocated $360 million, nearly 8% of their budget, as salaries to terrorists and their families. Now, in New York City terms, maybe that's not a lot, but the average income there is a lot less. By law, by Palestinian Authority law, to be a recipient, you must be involved in the fight against Israel. The law further provides bonuses for terrorists who are Israeli Arabs. So if you're an Israeli Arab, you get extra money. And if you're a Jerusalem resident, you get a further bonus on top of that. And the payments are scaled based upon the amount of damage that's done. Frankly, the hard part was to convince Congress this is really going on. And most of America doesn't realize that this is reality. It's not a right-wing conspiracy. Stuart has become a moral voice in the fight against terrorism. His determination to take the family's tragedy into saving the lives of others should be honored, not just by the Jewish community, but frankly by the civilized world. They determined the terror has to stop. No more victims. Now, Congress has taken the first steps. We're still waiting to see how the State Department will actually enact the law. The Knesset is also working on their version of the Taylor Force Act. Now that the United States has taken moral leadership with the passage of the Taylor Force Act, other countries are faced with this choice regarding their funding of the Palestinian Authority. You can be a terror enabler or a terror disabler. Which one is it going to be? Please welcome me, please join me in welcoming an American hero who is the son of an American hero, Stuart Force. Okay, right.
While Stuart is coming up, it reads, "Presented to Stuart Force in memory of your late son Taylor and his extraordinary legacy that will impact generations to come." The title of this award is the Continuing Strength Recognition Award. Stuart?
Stuart, it's yours.
I apologize for taking so long. It's quite a maze out there, and I thank everybody for moving a little bit to get out of the way so I can make my way up. And I'm sorry you had to clap so long. But Sandra and I actually have something in common this very evening. With his wife Tracy not here, and my wife Robbie not here, the first question people ask is, where are our wives? You deserve to know where my wife is. She is usually with me at every chance we get to work for the passage of the Taylor Force Act. Right now she is on a cruise that she and her mother had planned many months ago. And we checked the trip insurance to see if there was a way she could be here, and unfortunately it doesn't cover galas as nice as this to refund our money or reschedule. So she's on the trip with her mother. Also, her mother gave her a little bit of pressure. She's 84 years old, and she said, you know, Robbie, I'm getting older, this may be my last cruise. I've been keeping track. This is her 4th last cruise. So, truth. This, I wish my wife Robbie and our daughter Kristen were here to share this special evening, because it is a special evening for a couple reasons. First of all, to be honored here at the JCRC is special because you were one of the first organizations to support the Taylor Force Act. You were strong and early supporters, and obviously with the passage of the act, you were very effective. So to Charles, Michael, your staff, board of directors, and especially the contributors, from Robbie and I and our daughter, thank you. Thank you very much. You have made a difference in making things better. It's also a special night for another reason. This is a transition evening in the Taylor Force Act timeline. Up until this point, up until March 23rd, any opportunity that we had to speak with people or meet with groups or be on a panel, the focus of the evening was to educate people about the Taylor Force Act and to ask for their support, ask them to call their congresspeople and the administration to ask for their votes for the Taylor Force Act when it came up and their support in Congress and the Senate. Now these events are a chance to thank people for their support, for their, not only for the act, but for their support for the Force family. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Sander. As you know, he started this whole process. He was the person that made everyone else aware of the horrific practice of pay for slay. He did the homework, all those figures he cited tonight as far as payments. He and his team did the work. They put it together. But I also want to thank Sander, his wife Tracy, and their 7 wonderful kids. Knowing them, becoming their good friends, close friends over the past 2 years has made this journey. They've helped us through this journey. It is a bright spot in the last 2 years. And thank you, Sander. I'd also like to recognize Senator Lindsey Graham and Congressman Doug Lamborn. Senator Graham sponsored the legislation in the Senate, and of course Doug Lamborn sponsored the legislation in the House. Sponsoring is an easy word to say, but it doesn't convey the hard work, the scheduling, the putting together a coalition, putting together bipartisan support. And that's what this act had bipartisan support. And I wanted to make sure that their names were mentioned tonight because the passage was their babies and they made it happen. I'd also like to mention 3 local politicians. Representative Elliot Engel, Senator Chuck Schumer, and Representative Lee Zeldin. They were strong supporters, in 2 cases, co-sponsors of the legislation, and they made it happen. And a wonderful byproduct of this whole process is that we've met many wonderful people that work for us up in Washington, that work in organizations to better our communities, and it's been an eye-opening experience for Robbie and I. We lead sort of private lives, and until we lost Taylor, this was we didn't know groups like this existed, and we're better people for it. I'd like to address a couple questions that have been asked over the course of the last 2 years. First of all, where did we find the strength to continue after we lost Taylor? We didn't find it. It was given to us by you, by the Jewish community, by the Christian community, by the Israeli government, starting with Prime Minister Netanyahu on down. You gave us the strength to follow through on what Sander started, and our thanks will forever go out to you. Second question we get, more personal, is what was Taylor like? Now, I always like talking about Taylor. We, like any proud parent, any chance to brag about their kids. I won't I won't talk about his accomplishments. Taylor never talked about his accomplishments. I'll relate a couple things. One, when he was young, in an analogy I use when talking about Taylor. When Taylor was young, in elementary school, we moved to Ruidoso, New Mexico, which is a small town up in the mountains of central New Mexico. We moved there for the cool summers. We moved from Houston. We moved there for the cool summers and to let our kids learn how to ski, which are passions of Robbie and I. One morning, my wife took Taylor up to the bus stop. It was chilly, and she wanted to give him a warm place to sit while he waited for the bus. And I stayed at home. I had a cup of coffee. About 10 minutes later, Robbie came back into the house after Taylor got in the bus and left. Robbie walked in smiling and sort of shaking her head. And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "Taylor taught me something today." I said, "Really? What did he do?" And he goes, "Well, we were at the bus stop, and the bus for the middle school pulled up first, and a boy got out of the car next to us. He had a mohawk." I said, "Oh, a mohawk? You know, his hair was short on the sides." And no, it was really like the Indians wore. It was 3 inches straight up in the center, all the way back. It was painted green. And she said, "I started telling Taylor, how could the parents let him do that? What were they thinking? How did the boy let that happen to him?" And then Taylor looked at Robbie and said, "Mom, we're not here to judge." So Robbie said, "You know, I think he's going to turn out okay." And that's exactly what happened. Our lives, our responsibilities of parents quickly became one of making sure they put warm clothes on when it was cold, drink plenty of liquids, and wear sunscreen when it was hot and sunny, make sure they had their homework done, you know, the normal easy things. So both of our kids made parenting very easy, and we're thankful for that. And the analogy I'd like to share when people ask, well, what was Taylor as an adult? And I said those same qualities showed up later on. And I make the analogy of a glass on a table. Some of you have heard this, but it's the best way I can put it. You see a glass on a table that's half full. And a pessimist, of course, says it's half empty. An optimist says it's half full. Well, an engineer says it's twice as big as it needs to be, but that's another story. Taylor's glass was full, always full of life, and he shared it with everybody he met, friends, strangers. And that, if you can sum up Taylor's life, his approach to life, that was it. Why was he in Israel? That's another question we get a lot. I can say that it was because it was a school trip with 30 classmates, and he'd heard how the nightlife in Tel Aviv was exciting, and it was just going to be a good trip. Later on that summer, after we lost Taylor, we had a chance to talk with his close friend. Actually, all his friends were close friends. Josh Halu, who he went to high school with, West Point with, served in the Army with. Josh and Taylor attended Josh's wedding. And Josh is Jewish, and over the course of the years, Josh and his wife invited Taylor to Shabbat dinner several times. I talked with Josh this summer after we lost him, and Josh said, "I don't know if you knew this, but Taylor had been our guest on Friday night, and he loved it. He loved the traditions. He was intrigued by the customs, and he enjoyed being together." And I said, I can understand Taylor feeling that way. That was one reason why he went to Israel. The second reason was during a trip to Europe between his fulfilling his Army commitment and his beginning his MBA program at Vanderbilt. He went to Europe, like everybody wants to go to Europe as a kid. So he went to Europe, and one of his side trips, he went to Krakow, and he took a day tour to Auschwitz. And on this day tour, this 2-hour bus ride to and fro, he sat next to a lady from Oregon. After we lost Taylor, we got a letter from the lady. We had never met, and Taylor had just mentioned briefly about the trip that he had sat next to a lady coming and going. And the lady, her name's Kat, said that she thoroughly enjoyed visiting with Taylor, talking about families, talking about life. But she could tell on the trip back to their B&B in Krakow that he was somewhat subdued. And she said it obviously affected him greatly. And I said, well, how do you know that we lost Taylor? And she goes, ever since we met on that bus trip, I've been following him on Facebook because he so impressed me that I wanted to keep up to date on his comings and goings. And when I heard the sad news, he said, I had to let you know what a good, caring person he was. So that's why Taylor was in Israel, because his good friend Josh and his wife Emily invited him over to dinner, for Shabbat dinner, and because he had made the visit to Auschwitz. I think those had a deep effect on him. He wanted to know more about the Jewish people, and he wanted to go to the source. He wanted to go to Israel. The next question that has been asked actually more recently, what are our plans after the Act's passage? First thing we're going to do, my wife, our daughter, and I, we're going to watch out for each other. We'll hug a lot. We'll be attuned to each other's moods. We'll try to anticipate how things are going. We're going to be strong for each other. Second thing we'll do is look for opportunities to continue what we've been doing with the Taylor Force Act. If we have an opportunity to help with legislation or perhaps try to address the terror funding through the legal system, we'll do that. We are committed. I'd like to sum up with something that happened when we visited Senator Graham. We had not met Senator Graham. We've talked to him on the phone after Sandra put us in touch. The first time we met Senator Graham, Robbie and I went up to Washington, D.C. for the introduction at a press conference of the Taylor Force Act. So we went to Senator Graham's office. We introduced ourselves, and he took Robbie and I into his office, and normal chit-chat. And then he looked at us, and he said, Stuart, Robbie, how are you doing? And we said, Senator Graham, we still feel like Taylor is on a deployment and that he'll be coming home any day. And Senator Graham looked at us. He's a very religious man. He looked at us, said, Stuart, you've got it wrong. Taylor is home. It's you and Robbie who are on deployment. And you have a short deployment. You'll be with him soon. And you know, he was exactly right. That made more sense to us than all of the I'm so sorry's or how are you doing. It just put our lives and his life in perspective. We knew he was home, and we knew we would join him. So our third goal is that as the end of Robbie and I's deployment nears, we can look back and say that we were like Taylor. We were a force for good in this world, And with the strength that we've received from people we've met, the organizations that have sponsored us and given us an opportunity to tell people about the Taylor Force Act and our son, thank you. Thank you for helping us along the path to achieving our goal. He was a force for good, as you are too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, for such tender, powerful insight into your son's life. It is now my pleasure to introduce a 2018 Gala Vice Chair, a member of the JCRC-New York Executive Committee and Board of Directors, co-chair of the Center for Community Leadership, the Intergroup Commission, and a Development Committee member. You get the feeling she does a lot around here. Please welcome Louise Greilsheimer.
Some act to follow. I have the privilege of introducing Tom and Ben Blumberg, the Generation to Generation Honorees. One of the highest accolades we can receive is for making sure that our children understand and are involved in making the world a better place, just like you described your son. The award to Tom is special also because this year we're honoring one of our own. Tom has been active at JCRC for 20 years and presently serves on the executive committee. He started his philanthropic career at UJA Federation of New York, where he served in a variety of manners, chair of volunteer and leadership development, and on the executive committee. He still continues on the board of UJA Federation. Tom has been involved in more than just engaging the next generation in his own family, but as chair of Hillel's International Board of Directors, he worked to support the Hillels across the world, engaging young people on campus. Tom was very successful in business. He was a group vice president and principal of the Leviton Manufacturing Company. The same marketing and relationship building skills he used there, he transferred to the philanthropic world. Tom built relationships with the professional staffs in each organization he worked with, and I noted a few of them are here tonight. He considered the professionals the team that run the business, and he was but a resource that supports them. Family is the center of his life. Tom has been married to Lainey for 60 years, and in addition to Ben, Karen, and Betsy, he has 7 grandchildren. Several of his children or their spouses are involved in the community. And representing them tonight, we honor Ben, Generation to Generation, the Door of a Door awardee. Ben is the Executive Vice President and partner at Stark Office Suites. He too took his business and relationship building skills and brought them to the philanthropic world. He serves as chair of UJA Federation's Business and Professional Division and a member of the Westchester Jewish Council. He also participates in a mental health program from the Westchester Jewish Community Services. And as he described to me, he mentors an individual that has mental health issues. Ben lives with his wife Sue and 2 children and in Larchmont. Tom and Ben, please join me, and as we honor them, they join Tom's grandfather's values. Max, his grandfather and Ben's great-grandfather, founded what is known as the Kingsbrook Hospital for Jews with incurable diseases in the 1930s in Brooklyn. And it was an inspiration to our current honorees. Tom, Ben, we want to give them the award before we give Tom the mic, because we might not get it back. Tom, in recognition of your deep and invaluable dedication to family, community, and Jewish tradition, the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, 218 Gala Dinner, May 9th, Charles Temmer, President, Michael Miller, CEO and Executive Vice President. I'm going to read the same one to Ben. And I have one request. Before they speak, could that table of Blumberg family just stand up so you can see what the next several generations are?
Good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking the JCRC, the nominating committee, President Charles Temple, CEO Michael Miller, for bestowing this great honor upon my father and me. We are deeply grateful to receive the Generation to Generation Award, as its meaning applies not simply to both of us, but extends to our whole family, past and present. We are blessed to be part of a family that exemplifies the rich tradition of tikkun olam, making the world a better place. I feel as though I stand on the shoulders of giants in Jewish philanthropy whose commitment to their Jewish communities impacted so many lives. Both sets of my great-grandparents, Max and Lena Blumberg and Isidore and Lena Levitin, were pillars of the New York Jewish community. The legacy they left us has become a strong part of each of their descendants who share this passion to aid our own community and show kindness to people in need. Personally, I'm delighted that my daughter Lena, who was named after her two great-grandmothers, is here with us tonight over at that table. Then there is my personal giant, my dad, Tom Blumberg. Let's see if I can do this without getting too emotional. Many of you in this room know and love him and would agree that this recognition is so well deserved. Dad, I am proud of you and what you have accomplished and who you are. You consistently show great commitment, dedication, care, compassion, and leadership for Jewish communities here in New York and around the world. You are an inspiration not just to me, but to your entire family, and to anyone that has the good fortune to work with you, which, by the way, during the cocktail hour, at least half of you came up to me and said how much you love this man. So it was great. I hear that all the time. And the effect that you have on people runs deep. Through your wisdom and leadership, you bring out the best in people around you. And many of you will know and relate to this, he is not afraid to tell people what he thinks, but always with an eye towards doing the right thing and making a difference. So, Dad, I love you, and I'm proud to be your son. And, wait, one last thing. So to the next generation of my family, who you saw sitting at that table over there, follow the example that your grandfather has set, and you will continue to ensure that the Jewish people fulfill their mission to be a light unto the nations. Thank you. And here is my dad, Tom Blumberg.
Ben, thanks so much for those beautiful words. Where are you going? I'm not finished. Come back here. I've watched your personal growth into the man you are today, and I've never been more proud of you than I am tonight. You're a wonderful son to Mom and to me, a supportive and loving brother to Betsy, your sisters, Sister Betsy and Sister Karen, and your brother-in-law, Jonathan, an amazing husband for Sue, your wife Sue, terrific father to your son Sam and your daughter Lena, who's adorable and sitting there, and a cherished friend to your wide circle of friends, many of whom I've seen you with, and they love you as much as you love them. I've seen your acts of generosity and kindness to others, your commitment to the Jewish people, as well as to everyone you work with, and I'm filled with admiration for you, my son. Ben, you are much loved by all who know you, and it's an honor for me to be a partner with you here tonight as we receive this award. Louise, where are you, Louise? Thank you for your wonderful introduction. You are one of the most highly respected leaders in the Jewish world. I know you're not so comfortable hearing that, but it's true. And it's because of you, and that's why it's so appreciated by me, and it's because of you that I became active at Hillels of New York. It's because of you that I became involved with JCRC of New York, two of my greatest loves in the Jewish communal world, along, of course, with UJA Federation of New York. I want to take this opportunity. Where are you, Michael Miller? Please join Ben and me in expressing our appreciation and love for Michael Miller, for all he does for the Jewish community. Michael, you are a true icon of the Jewish people, here and in New York, and for Jews everywhere around the world, and certainly Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben and I are deeply honored to be receiving this award, the Dor Vador, from generation to generation. But to be accurate, this is not simply about Ben and I. It has everything to do with past generations of our family. I am sure there are many people here tonight who are also following in the footsteps and living with the values of their family leaders, their elders in their family. Our family, too, has inspirational figures who instill in us and our children the values of tzedakah and trying to make the world just a little bit better place for their having been here. In our case, that would be Max and Lena Blumberg, and my wife's grandparents, as you heard, Isidore and Lena Levitin, my parents, Helen and Jack Blumberg. A story is told that there was once an old man who was known as the seed planter. Each day he would walk along the roads and hills of his town planting seeds. The day would come when those seeds would grow into fruitful and beautiful trees. One day, a young man who had been watching him for a while walked over to him and said, "Old man, why are you planting these trees, these seeds? Surely you'll never be around when the seeds grow into trees. Why do you bother?" And the old man replied, "When I first walked among these trees and among these woods, I found many trees. Each was planted by others who came before me. I am not planting these seeds for me, my son. I'm planting them for you, so that you may enjoy their comfort and shade one day. And so it is that Ben and I see ourselves as seed planters for future generations of our family, as many of you may feel you are for your families. My grandfather Max arrived in New York from the old country at 15 years old, penniless but passionate. While at the time he didn't have much himself, he truly believed in helping others. After a few years, he met and married my grandmother Lena. Our granddaughter Lena is right sitting there, named after her. And they built a successful business. What drove them, though, was their passion to help people less fortunate than them. And you heard that in 1920s, diseases were rampant in New York, and orphans were commonplace. Fortunately, not anymore, but they were then. And Max and Lena founded the Pride of Judea Children's Home. They loved each child as their own, and they were called Grandpa Max and Grandma Lena. And the other example I wanted to give you that Ben mentioned is they were appalled by the poor care and the conditions in city hospitals that were treating their chronically ill patients of all faiths poorly. They founded the Jewish Sanitarium for Incurables, today known as the Kingsbrook Medical Center. Interestingly enough, they realized that the name, the Jewish Sanitarium for Incurables, was not so terrific because nobody wanted, the doctors didn't want to work there. They wanted to cure people. There were no kosher kitchens then in hospitals, so they made certain that kosher food was available for Jewish patients. Today, this hospital, the Kingsbrook Center, has over 900 beds in Brooklyn on Rutland Road. After the Great Depression, and this is kind of an interesting story, Max was able to convince Isidore Levitin, because he needed to, my wife's grandfather, to assume the leadership and the funding of the Kingsbrook. So there's the Blumberg Pavilion and there's the Levitin Pavilion standing next to each other at Kingsbrook. And that's pretty special for us. It's a testimony to the partnership they had in philanthropy. Now, my dad, Jack, and his siblings were active on all these boards, yet with all of the philanthropic activities of our elders, I am most proud that they were early Zionists, committed to the creation of the State of Israel. When Chaim Weizmann came to America, he stayed at my grandfather Max's and Lena's home. Chaim Weizmann, who would become Israel's first president, said, and this is what he wrote, "How I wish we had more men working for our cause like Max Blumberg." Much later, my dad was a fundraiser for UJA. Now I've got to tell you about this. He had the dubious distinction of being the card caller at the lighting dinners. But with his sense of humor, he always seemed to be able to come up with some additive dollars from his peers in the audience. I remember at one dinner, he called out, "Morris, how much are you giving this year?" And in the back came a voice, "Same as last year." And Max said, my father said, "Morris, I know you had a good year. You've copied all my best items and designs. So how much are you going to give this year, Morris?" Now, I couldn't believe it, but it always seemed to work. He got more money from Morris. My grandparents did not become philanthropists because they amassed great wealth. From the beginning, they arrived with only a desire to help others. And they did so over and over again. They were kind, they were generous, they were magnanimous. There are many who believe that only the rich can afford to be charitable. Yet the true instinct of giving can be as much a part of anyone, a poor glazer, a carpenter, as of a wealthy banker. My grandparents and parents always said to the children, as you heard from my son Ben, "Do the right thing, and you will live happily with no regrets." This, then, is their legacy that has been passed down, l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation. For Ben and me, it continues to inspire us. As I look now at my family, I know I'll be part of them for generations to come. My dear family and friends, it's now time for each of us to continue our work to plant seeds for future generations that will provide them with shade and comfort and will surely enrich your lives with the joy of knowing that you are making the world a little bit better place for those in need. On behalf of Ben and myself and our family, thank you for this great honor. Thank you for being here to share this moment with our family. He doesn't like being called an icon. You're an icon, Michael.
Thank you, Tom. And Ben, congratulations to both. I'm getting misty watching the father-son love. I'd like to now bring up an old friend and the 2018 Gala co-chair, member of the JCRC-New York Executive Committee and Board of Directors, and President and CEO of Hiltzik Strategies, Matthew Hiltzik. Matt?
Thank you, Bill. Bill belongs in the MC Hall of Fame. He's every event I've been to, he's managed to adjust to his audience perfectly. I've seen him do this multiple times, and we're really grateful for you being a part of this and sharing everything. Special thanks to my co-chairs for the evening, Matt Dornick and Randy Goldstein, tonight's other honorees, to all of our donors, sponsors, and attendees for supporting an important cause, and to my dear friend Michael Miller and the JCRC staff for everything that you do. I'm privileged to present our guest of honor, Andrew Morse, the Media Visionary Award. But before the presentation, we have the best introduction to an introduction that I've ever seen at a JCRC event. So, courtesy of CNN, if you could please look at the monitor.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. We're following breaking news just coming into the Situation Room. CNN has learned that Andrew Morse has just been named a media visionary. Yes, a media visionary. The announcement was made only moments ago in New York City at the Jewish Community Relations Council. The implications of this announcement are still being considered, but we do know this, that all of us here at CNN are enormously proud of Andrew and wish him a big, big mazel tov. That's it for me. I'm Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room. Now back to your regularly scheduled gala.
I still remember exactly where I was. I was walking through a farmer's market in Union Square, and my cell phone rang, and it was a guy named Andrew Morse, who was looking to be the executive producer of Good Morning America Weekend. And we had met briefly and sort of bonded over our crazy urge to travel to exotic and completely off-the-grid countries. We were both fascinated with Turkmenistan because they had a crazy king who built a gold statue of himself that would rotate with the sun. And little did I know, that would be Andrew's management style going forward. That is funny because it is so untrue. Anybody who's worked with Andrew knows he is the opposite of a tyrant. He is a collaborator. He is a mensch. He's one of the greatest guys I know. I've been to Iraq with him. I've been in the front row of Grateful Dead shows with him. And I would take a bullet for him anytime, any place.
Andrew, you were the guy who made work fun. We were a family, and you were like the cool dad. You let us do these crazy things. You let Weir create a side project, and then he convinced me to wear a headdress and a Cirque du Soleil costume. You had us camping in the woods, road tripping in a vintage VW van that, by the way, rolled through red lights because we had no brakes. You let me go to Costa Rica and paint houses and zip line. No, you paid for me to go to Costa Rica and paint houses and zip line. You think outside the box, my friend, and that is why you are so good at what you do. You don't shy away from innovation, you embrace it. So, yes, a visionary, absolutely. You earned that one. Pura vida, Andrew. Congratulations.
Hey, Andrew, I got just one question. If you're such a visionary, how come you're still the fan of a team, a baseball team, that hasn't won the World Series in 35 years?
Congratulations, my friend. It has been such a pleasure working for you. You've been a friend, a teacher, a mentor, a great jefe. Mazel, felicidades, and remember, Keep plucking that chicken.
Hello, Andrew. Remember me? Once and forever, your devoted correspondent. Congratulations.
Andrew, I want to give a big congratulations to you. I'm in downtown Beijing here in Forbidden City. So I wanted to say a few nice things about you because you and I were working together in DC. We moved to London and both reported out of Asia. So I wanted to ask people here in Beijing what they really know about you. This is Andrew Morse. He's a very famous journalist.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
You don't know him?
I don't know.
He's famous. It's Andrew Morse. You don't know him?
不知道是谁。
你不知道他? Oh, okay. Does he look like a movie star?
It look like.
Yeah, right.
Very, very handsome.
Very handsome.
Yes.
I think he's gonna love that. You speak English?
Yes, it is.
So what do you think about him?
Very sexy. Gorgeous blue eyes and blonde hair.
Are those blue? I think they're brown.
Blind.
So Andrew, some of your old colleagues from here in Beijing want to say something to you too.
Hey, Andrew, I've always wondered why the did you quit ABC?
It's 7 seconds. Whiny, mahal kita, I love you, saranghe, and yeah, school day. Congratulations, Andrew.
Wow, Andrew Morse, a media visionary. I guess that does actually fit our CNN motto here, facts first. That is certainly true. I'm thrilled for you, Andrew. Congratulations and mazel tov.
So I've known Andrew Morse roughly since 1996 when he was 23 at ABC News. I was 10 years old at the time. And we've been to some of the world's truly most wondrous places and enjoyed ourselves there. I remember once we were in Iraq together. It must have been 2004 or so. And in order to pass the time and also I think to get our minds off the dangers there, we would write songs about some of the Iraqi leaders and people with interesting names who were there at the time. The president of Iraq then was a Sunni Arab, a man named Ghazi al-Yawar. So the song that we came up with for him was Still Ghazi After All These Years. It was every bit as clever then as it is now. But Andrew Morse, I want to say congratulations to you tonight, and you, my friend, are still Ghazi after all these years.
Hey, Andrew, I want to congratulate. Which one is Andrew Morse? Is he the blonde guy? Wears the vest? No? I kid. Andrew, it's great working with you always, and congratulations on the Media Visionary Award.
Andrew, congratulations and cheers to you.
Hey, Andrew Morse, a huge congratulations.
Hey, Andrew, congratulations on the Media Visionary Award. I'm like a lot of people at CNN. I know I would not be where I am today were it not for your support and advice.
Andrew Morse, you are a true media visionary. There's no question about that. Mazel tov on getting an award for it.
As we all congratulate Andrew, I just want those of you watching this to know Andrew's a big part of the magic we do here at CNN, and who would have thunk it that this young man could rise to such greatness? Look at that smile, that's amazing. And then, of course, there's this. Andrew's contributions also include bringing Paisley back. That's a big achievement. Andrew, it's a big night for you. Mazel tov.
Andrew Morse, mazel tov, my friend, a much-deserved recognition of your hard work. But I also must say I was slightly surprised that you were receiving a Visionary Award, since I honestly have not seen you take your eyes off of your iPhone in all of the 4 years that we have worked together here at CNN. Seriously, people, he's going to walk into traffic one day.
Congratulations, Andrew. Is there confetti somewhere? Balloons? All of us at CNN tonight congratulate you on your Media Visionary Award. To many more years of keeping facts first. That was awesome. We're going to keep that, right?
Congratulations, Andrew.
Congratulations, Andrew.
Congratulations, Andrew. Thank you for always believing in me and for taking the phrase drive past the cows and turning it into the thing that I'll always be known for, no matter how hard I actually work in the business.
Hi, Andrew. I'm proud to say that I knew you when, before you were a visionary, but you always had your sights set on something big. I'm glad to say that we can still call each other colleagues and friends after this many years, and enough years that I can say I've truly seen you become a visionary. So congratulations on this great award.
Congratulations, Andrew, and Texas forever.
Hey, Andrew, I got 6 words for you. Ready? Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. Congratulations, and mazel tov.
it's pretty hard to follow Wolf Blitzer and certainly the Chinese folks who are in the film, so I don't think I can do that. But so the best place to start is probably that I knew Andrew when he actually looked like the guy wearing the paisley tie and when he was wearing that paisley tie that John King referenced. It was, I think, for his fraternity headshot, which is where we first met. It was the spring of 1993. It was a long semester for Andrew in pledging Theta Chi fraternity. I was assigned to be his Eggman, which was his guy protecting him for some of the more interesting parts of the experience. I was a teaching assistant for Dave Ferris's Hotel 357 Insurance and Risk Management, which has really helped guide his career. He's very much into risk management ever since then and figured it out all because of Mr. Ferris. We're here to honor you tonight, though, not to roast you, so I'm not going to share your pledge name with everybody. So I'm going to move past that. I learned from Bill Weir from the last time I was at an event that he hosted that it's always good to have a book for your speech. So I did find this book about the manual of Theta Chi fraternity, which can offer some great source material. I'm just going to only bring up a couple of points. There's the creed, which I know you still know about. I believe in Theta Chi, traditions and ideals, born of sturdy manhood, etc. But it also contained things that I never knew. Like in the early 20th century, Theta Chi was the first fraternity in the country to recognize Mother's Day as an official date in the calendar. I guess we were very good mama's boys then. And I know that your parents had that similar experience of not having travel insurance, so that they were traveling also tonight, or they would have been here. But I know that that Casey's here, and you have Anna here, and you have your aunt and uncle here, I believe, as well. And so I'm glad you have your family here. On page 98, there's some interesting standards, supposedly, for pledging. It talks about pledging is based on character, inherent ability, capacity for leadership, and general promise for constructive citizenship, all things that certainly apply to you. It also talks about the definite purpose of the chapter is to correct defects in dress, demeanor, ambition, and attitude. So I'll leave the evaluation of your dress and your demeanor to your wife. You certainly have the ability and the ambition, and your colleagues can probably attest to the fact that you have plenty of attitude as well. Your commitment to journalism was clear at Cornell. You became the editor-in-chief of the Cornell Daily Sun. During your 15 years at ABC, you produced and reported from over 40 countries. You covered the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as well as terrorist attacks from the region. You were on the scene at the 2004 South Asian tsunami and earthquakes in Haiti and Japan. And based on that video, you clearly still are that sex symbol in China as well. You moved on to be the head of Blumberg Television in the United States, launching a new programming slate and leading the network's coverage of the 2012 presidential election. And then I'm glad that you got to meet Jeff Zucker and join CNN, where you serve as Executive Vice President and General Manager at CNN Digital Worldwide. Glad to have Jeff Zucker here, the man who hired you, someone who I've had a chance to know over the years and appreciate his insatiable appetite for news. And I know that all of the CNN folks who are here are people that are actually making sure there's real news out there that we need during these crazy times. And between Bill Weir and the whole table over there of Chris and Kate and Wendy and Matt and Amy and Allison and Ken and Emily and others who are not here. So thank you very much, all of you, for enjoying the whole evening and learning about the JCRC and for everything that you do. Andrew always liked to remind me that my pledge name was Shlomo, so I feel obligated to provide at least one brief reference to. We had really creative guys in our fraternity. That was a tough one. You know, put the guy who would go to the Young Israel on Friday night and make him Shlomo. That was a stretch. I feel obligated to include one brief reference to this week's Torah portion. Since Andrew has a great appreciation of history and of facts, I figured I would try to combine the two, one fact with a Jewish angle. Thousands of people visit the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia each year, and they read the inscription on the top, which gives the bell its illustrious name. It says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." What few people realize is that this is not somewhere from Exodus or somewhere else, but it's actually from this week's Torah portion. We have a double portion of Bahar and Bechukotai. It's Bahar. And Ukratim Dror Ba'aretz L'chol Yoshbeha. And it's basically saying to proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all the inhabitants. This is a time to stop and consider all those around you and all the inhabitants of your land, which is sort of perfect to also describe the mission of the JCRC. Yes, there are important missions to Israel and sending elected officials and key staff to see Israel for themselves, and something that CNN reporters can appreciate about seeing it for yourself instead of being told what the talking points are or what you should be saying. But the key to the JCRC is community and the extraordinary commitment to identifying shared challenges and working together to create shared solutions that benefit all of us. I've been on the board for, I think, 17 years. When I was first on the board, I was the youngest person by like 15 years, and then Michael found people and friends of mine to catch up to me, like Jennifer Falk and Jonathan Greenspun and others. So I'm very grateful for that. But I know, Andrew, how much you appreciate and value service to people of all backgrounds and how you've set a great example about that. To you and your team, and you providing the reporting that we need and to be able to share stories, that's a great contribution as well, in addition to the different causes you care about. I'm very grateful you trusted me when I asked if you would accept this honor. I'm proud of the different worlds that you've explored, how you've shared information, and that it's fitting that the JCRC, which is also committed to building bridges and sharing different points of view, has chosen to recognize you. TYB, and it worked, so I'd love you to come up if I could present you the So it reads, Andrew Morse, in recognition of your continued commitment to serving communities through your tireless pursuit of knowledge and truth.
Thank you. Sir? Thank you. Thanks, man. Okay. Visionary.
Thank you very much, Matthew, and thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. I have to admit, when I first learned about this award, I wasn't sure what a visionary was and couldn't quite figure out why the JCRC had decided that I was one. So it's nice that everybody in the video thought that they agreed a little bit. So I did what any journalist ought to do, which was do the research, seek the facts, connect the dots. And so I looked up media visionary in the dictionary. Couldn't find it. I just looked up visionary. And it said a visionary is one who thinks about or plans the future with imagination or wisdom. So I thought about that for a minute, and then I was fairly certain the JCRC had picked the wrong person. I'm not particularly wise, and compared to so many of my colleagues that I've had the opportunity to work with, I can't really say that I'm particularly imaginative either. But since the good people of the JCRC saw fit to bestow me with this honor, I thought a little bit more about what it meant, and I started to connect the dots. Here's what I came up with. While I've never really described myself as a visionary, for better or worse, it's fair to say that I've spent a lot of time thinking about or trying to plan the future. I've also been fortunate my entire life to be surrounded by people who've encouraged me to do just that. I suppose I've always had a habit of peeking around the corner, and when you do that, you hope you can glimpse a little bit of what's next. That's all you really have to do, I think, to be a visionary. You just have to be willing to look around the corner, to get beyond the 6 inches in front of your face and peek around the corner to look at what's next. And when you look around the corner, one of two things happens. Either you see a big, beautiful vision of the road ahead, or at least enough of it to help you paint a picture, or you smack right into a wall that you just never saw coming. And hitting that wall hurts. Sometimes it hurts a lot. But unless you're willing to take the chance, you're never going to be able to catch that glimpse of what the future might hold. And these days, it's more important than ever for us to do that. We're living in a period of great change and great uncertainty. It's undeniable that we are. Whether or not you like the person living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or not, that's not the issue. What's happening these days is you wake up in the morning, all of us, and more often than not, something is shaking our collective equilibrium. We find ourselves saying virtually every day, can you believe that just happened? Or do you really think that's possible? So we can't pretend we're living in normal times. I remember when I was in college, I used to talk to my dad a lot about what it was like to go to school in the 1960s in the throes of the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement. And when my dad was at Cornell, a group of African American students took over the student union and they declared the university had 24 hours to live. My dad went to school when the nation was mourning Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King. When my dad was in school, a man walked on the moon. So less than 30 years later, I was on the same campus, And I used to write op-eds for the college newspaper bemoaning the fact that my generation was lazy and apathetic and comfortable. We were cursed, I thought, or wrote, rather than blessed by peace and prosperity. We lacked heroes, we lacked causes, we lacked the headiness of uncertain times. I sort of yearn for all of this, as you do when you're 22. Because when the ground is firm and the times are stable, it's easy to be complacent. It's not as necessary in times like that to poke your head around the corner, because the odds are when the sun comes up tomorrow, the day will look a whole lot like it does today. It was boring for me to grow up in the 80s and 90s. I resented it a little bit. You know, when you're a college kid, you can do that. I guess be careful what you wish for, because these times are anything but normal. Today is anything but boring. We're seeing seismic shifts in the role that the US plays on the global stage. We're seeing fundamentally different approaches to policies that have guided this country for generations, whether that's south of the border, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in the Korean Peninsula. As a journalist, I've been fortunate enough to cover some of those stories up close. It's not my place to judge as a journalist whether or not the course our government is setting is the right course or the wrong course, but one thing's for sure, we're in uncharted waters, and we see that happening every day. So this uncertainty overseas and the uncertainty at home, it impacts all of us, whether we realize it or not. And of course, everyone has an opinion. And thanks to social media, everyone gets to share those opinions loudly. We live in a world of constant argument, of anger, of debate. Our present state is just noisy, in large part because we really can't tell what the future will hold. We have no idea what's happening around that next corner. And so for me and for my colleagues at CNN, it's our job to cut through the noise. It's our job to focus on the facts. And we never expected that we'd be fighting this existential battle in the name of truth. As a journalist, I always just assumed that we'd wake up every day and the First Amendment was fairly rock solid, and that the free press, devoted to speaking truth to power, was something we could pretty much all agree on as Americans. It was a good thing. We didn't have to worry about it. But as we've seen, that's not always the case. We have to fight. I also never imagined that the business of journalism would find itself in such an incredible period of uncertainty. But the pace of technological change that's impacting every part of our lives, changing the way we live and changing the way we work, is having a real impact on the business that we're in. This is a golden age of journalism. There's better reporting than there's ever been in generations. But we're having to figure out new business models and new products to reach new audiences in new ways almost every day. We're changing the proverbial engine on the car as we're rolling down the highway going 100 miles an hour. It's challenging, and it's exciting, and it's not for the faint of heart, but it's the world that we're living in, and we all have no choice but to drive around the corner, to look around the corner. We have to do it as a country, we as journalists have to do it as an industry, and we have to do it as individuals. It's when times are most uncertain, that's when you have to look around the corner. It doesn't make you a visionary, it just means you don't know what's coming next. So it probably comes as no surprise that I've never felt more energized or more enthusiastic about what the future holds, or a greater desire to peek around that corner and see what's coming down the road ahead. Bobby Kennedy's usually credited with one of my favorite quotes, although it originally came from George Bernard Shaw. They said, one of them, I think both, said, "Some men see things as they are and they ask why. I dream of things that never were and I ask why not." We all need to be looking at the future these days, and we all need to be asking why not. As we do, I thought I'd pass along a few quick lessons that I've learned along the way as I've caught glimpses of the road ahead and tried to get glimpses of the future and frankly smacked into a few too many walls. They're just 4. So first, in order to have the courage to peek around the corner, you need to surround yourself with people who encourage you, people who make you believe in yourself, the importance of putting yourself on the line in pursuit of something greater than you, of helping you understand it's about the team, the work, the adventure. It's never, ever, ever about you. I've had the good fortune of having family and friends and colleagues and mentors and bosses who've always pushed me forward and helped me see the bigger picture. And so many of them are here tonight, and we're in that video, and I'll always be grateful. Second, don't be afraid to take choices. This is the obvious one, but it's too easy to forget. Don't be afraid to take chances, not choices. When you're standing on shaky ground, The natural temptation is to stand still and hope that it stops shaking. But when things are at their most uncertain, when they're at their shakiness, when the path is the least clear, when the fruit is way out on the limb, that's when you have to push yourself to take the biggest chances. If you're content with a tomorrow that looks a lot like today, there's really no need to ever take a chance. But if you want to catch a glimpse of what's to come, you can't be afraid. Number 3, don't forget to bring people with you. It's important to always remember that no matter how bright the future might appear from where you stand today, it would be really bleak and really dreary if you got there and you found yourself there all alone. The problem is you can't assume that everyone will be as keen as you are to head into the unknown. And if you're going to lead the way and you expect people to follow, you need to make sure that you do bring them along with you. Make sure you paint a picture of what the future looks like. Make sure they can see it. Make sure they're willing to come along for the ride, and then be sure to take care of them. Because inevitably, when you peek around that corner often enough, hoping to get just the littlest glimpse of the future, you're bound to run into the wall. And sometimes when you run into the wall, it hurts like hell. And that brings me to the 4th lesson, 4th and last. Always get up. If you don't have a reasonably high threshold for pain, you're not willing to fail, then you should really stay away from those blind curves and just stick to the straightaways. Because you will hit the wall, and when you do, it will hurt. But there's no other way that I know of to see the future. So if you're willing to take the risk, to stick your neck out, you also need to be willing to accept the consequences that come when things don't always work out exactly as you'd hoped. And when they don't work out, you have to get up every single time. And when you do, you can't be afraid to look around the corner again. The trick is, when you do look around the corner the next time, make sure you've learned something. So that if you're going to hit a wall, at least make sure it's not the same one that you've hit before. So to whatever degree I've had some measure of success in my career in helping to envision the future, I'd attribute much of that success to those 4 lessons, and I'd also attribute it to the family, friends, and colleagues who've helped me keep down that path, who've helped push me forward, who've helped pick me up whenever I've hit that wall. And many of them are here tonight, as I noted, and I'm grateful to all of them. I owe a great deal to my parents, Ricky and Lou Morse, who actually, fortunately, couldn't be here tonight. I say fortunately because my dad was pretty sick last year. For several months, none of us could really see the future pretty clearly. And for me, it looked pretty bleak. Nothing was more unsettling than that when you try to look around the corner and you're seeing something that looks pretty bleak. But sometimes the future surprises you, and he's doing better than ever and stronger than ever. So rather than joining us for dinner tonight, they're on vacation in Lake Como, Italy. So good for them. And from a very young age, my parents were the ones who always encouraged me to ask why not. I want to thank the co-chairs for tonight's dinner, Randy Goldstein, my roommate from college, the best man in my wedding, and somebody who's always egged me on to look at what's coming around the bend. He helped organize this event tonight. Matt Dornick, my colleague at CNN and dear friend. He's a fellow traveler as we all navigate these uncertain times in the industry. His faith in me, and more important, in the team that we have and our shared mission is something that I value deeply. So thank you to Matt as well. And Matthew Hiltzik, you just heard from, my old friend and fraternity brother. At school, in our professional lives, he's always helped encourage me to chase the future and has always been there to help me get up when I hit the wall. And I want to thank Bill Weir for entertaining us all tonight, for emceeing, for his kind words. Bill's always been a believer and a great friend and a fellow traveler. He took a chance on me, as he noted in that video, early on in my career, and has helped me stretch my imagination in ways I never knew I was capable of. And I want to thank my boss, Jeff Zucker. He is a true visionary. He leads from the front. He's inspired me to push harder than I ever have before. Jeff's faith in the vision that I have of the future has allowed me to run through walls. He's also taught me that even if you manage to run through them, it still hurts like hell. And so actually, sometimes it's just easier to go around them. And so I'm working on that. And I want to thank the JCRC, Charlie, Michael Miller, Marcy Fishman for this great honor. The work, thank you. You know, the work this organization is doing to bring communities together and bridge divides between cultures has never been more important than at a time like this. They're the visionaries, and they're helping build a brighter future for this city. Most of all, I want to thank my children, Cecilia and Holden, and my wife, Anna. The prospect of peeking around corners and smacking into walls can be scary, It's much easier to do when the foundation beneath you is rock solid. They know all too well that I never look at things as they are, that I'm always asking why not. And their love, support, and faith is what gives me the courage to keep asking. So thank you, Anna, and thank you all. Have a good night.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Miller. I have an unenviable job, and that is thanking a bunch of people. So in essence, what I'm going to do is thank everybody. Consider yourselves thanked. B, Andrew just spoke about team. This event would not have happened without a team in JCRC led by 3 people. One of them is, and he hasn't got enough mention this evening, is the president of the Jewish Relations Council, Charles Temmel. And on the professional side, 2 extraordinary young professionals who really made this evening possible, and that's Marcy Fishman and Grant Silverstein. So with that, I'm turning it over to Bill to wrap up.
And I'm dismissing you. Thank you so much for having us. There's a dessert reception out in the foyer. Thank you for letting me be part of this great night, and congratulations to the honorees. Good night, everybody.